So another Patreon exclusive video, this time about the BigButton modules from Impromptu that will allow you to record gates and also CV with the BigButton 2 module and then play them back with multiple voices of your choice. Let's really start with the first BigButton module. Okay, so we have 6 channels that we can use. Each will have a different sequence we can record into. So let's say that channel 1 will trigger the kick I have here with tremor 2. And now we need a clock to drive the sequence, and this will affect the clock resolution, of course. And what I mean by that is if you want to be able to enter also, for example, 16th notes, you will need a clock resolution of 4. So in this case, this is exactly what I will do. I have a clock multiplied by 4. This will go to the clock input. Now we can choose the number of steps we want, right? We have a length up to 64 steps in this case. Now, since I have a resolution of 16th notes, if I select just 16 steps, we will have exactly 1 bar. Here we have a sort of a metronome light, if you will. You can see the red light is the first step or the first beat. Right, and then we have 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? We have just 1 bar in this case, right? And then with the BigButton here, we can start recording the sequence. Of course, this will work also with external triggers, but let's see if I can record something. Let's wait for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? By default, it will be set also to snap, so it will be quantized to the clock. Now, let's say I don't like this, I can also clear this pattern, right, and then record something new. Let's wait for it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so I just click the button, and this will enter the notes according to the clock. Again, I have snap on, so it will be quantized to the clock. Let's say now the channel 2 will trigger the noise section here on tremor 2 for hi-hats. And now to record something into this, we have to change the channel. Here we have the channel control. So if I go to channel 2, you can see here it's also a green light. Right now I can record something into this channel. So let's again wait for it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, I can use channel 3 for a snare drum. Let's say I have here tremor 1. Again, change the channel, and then I can record something here. Right, so we have 3 parts going. Again, this is recording the gates, so I can still make changes in the voices themselves. Right, if you want to perform these voices. I also have here a bass. This is kick all from Befaco with this lovely chain. So I'm going to use channel 4 to trigger it. Again, change the channel to 4 so I can record into it, and then let's see. Now, something you can do with the BigButton is to record external sequences. Something like the Turing machine, for example, can generate interesting sequences that you can then might want to store somehow, and the BigButton can be quite handy for that. So here I'm using the same clock for both. Again, I'm using a multiplied by 4, and this goes to both the Turing machine and to the BigButton sequencer. Channel 1 will trigger, again, I have here a kick all from Befaco with this lovely chain. Right, so if I connect the Turing machine, it will record it and will play it then back. All I have to do is connect this to the external trigger input. Right, so I'm going to use, let's say, this one here. Right, connect it, disconnect it, and now we have, in this case, 16 steps recorded. Right now, for each channel, we have 2 sequences. We can switch between them with the bank button, or again, also here we have external CV if we want to use it. Right, so if I click this once, now we move to bank 2, and now I can record another sequence. And switch between them. Right, and this will be per channel. So if I move now to channel 2, also here I can record something. I have here an FM voice with 2 FM operators. Right, so again, I will record 2 sequences. Right, this is one. And if I click the bank, this will change the bank just for channel 2. Now I can record another one. Right, now we also have here the delete button that will delete the closest step. In the right click menu you can also change this big and del on next step if you want this behavior that it will delete the next step. But if you just click it once, it will start deleting steps, basically deleting the gates to add more space. And if you just click and hold it, it will delete everything. But then we have the fill button here that will just fire out gates, again according to the clock. So as long as I hold it, as long as I click and hold it, it will just fire gates as sort of a fill. Right, and if I turn on this memory button, it will also record these gates into the sequence. Right, I have channel 3 connected to tremor 2 with some delay. So I will switch to channel 3 and now I can use another function here. I can use the random function or this random knob to record random gates basically, but they will also be snapped or they will also be quantized to the clock. The more I turn this knob to the right, the more chance the clock has to be recorded. So the BigButton 2 takes this idea and adds also control voltage recording. Again, we have 6 channels, but in this case you can see we have gate and CV out. So I will use the first channel to gate the FM operator that I have here, but also to sequence it or to sequence its pitch in this case with the CV output. Once again, I will use a clock multiplication of 4. The clock input is here in this case. Right, and for this I will use the 12 key for now just to generate gates and pitch information. Right, so again the gates will go to the BigButton CV input here. This will record the gates, and the CV will go to the CV input. This will record the pitch information in this case. And now I can record a loop, but again in this case also with pitch. So let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, and I can add to this. Right, now you can still hear changes in notes in pitch even after the note plays. That's because I have here a long release or relatively long release on the FM operator, but we can make sure that the changes in pitch will happen only with the gates by activating the sample and hold here. Right, I have here also kick all from Befaco again. So I will use channel 2. Again, we have pitch and we have gates. Change this to channel 2 on the BigButton sequencer 2. Right, and now again I can record something. Right, so basically we have the same features, just with another sequence for recording control voltage. And again, we can use this to record external sequences as well. Here I have the probably key also from Impromptu, so I can record this, for example, into channel 1. I have the CV already going to the CV input. It will only start recording whenever we connect the gates, right? So I'm going to connect the gates now and it will start recording. In this case, you can see I have here a 7-step sequence. Right, so we have this recorded. I can switch this to channel 2, I have here another FM operator, and again record another sequence. Right, change this to channel 3, I have here another FM operator, and record another one. Right, so I have 3 sequences that are recorded or were recorded from the probably key. The probably key will basically output random notes according to the scale we select here. Right, so now I got a result coming totally from the probably key, but it's being looped with a 7-step sequence. Now also here we can use the fill button, but here it will work a bit differently than with the BigButton 1. Right, in this case the fill button will only generate gates, but if you have something connected to the CV input, it will sample it. It will act basically like a sample and hold. Recording, we can also record this then with the memory here, but I will show you this in a second. So I have here random voltage going through a quantizer, and this is going to the CV input. So whenever I hit now the fill, it will generate gates that will basically sample this voltage. Right, so now if I hit mem, I can also record this. I want to quickly show you a cool way you can process sequences even further. So let's say that I record something. I have here the 8sec. It's always being randomized, so it's always changing gates and pitch. Again, I have the CV input already connected. All I have to do is connect the gates and then it will start recording. So let's record something. Right, let's say it's this one, this sequence. Right, and now I want to process it even further. I can copy it to another sequencer. This will work with a phrase sequencer. This will work with Foundry, right? Also from Impromptu. So let me take the clock out from here for a second. In the right-click menu, we have portable sequence. We can copy it. This will copy this sequence that we've just recorded. And now if I go to the phrase sequencer, portable sequence, paste, and you can see we have this sequence here on the phrase sequencer, which is quite cool. So if I use now the clock, for example, right, we have exactly the same sequence. I have here another FM operator. And now again, I can process it even further. I can change the notes. I can change the length. I can change the play mode. Right, I can record a few of them with the BigButton and then move them onto the phrase sequencer, the 16, the 32, or Foundry, right? And like this, continue and process and create variation and movement. Another fun thing you can try is switching between the channels. Here I recorded 4 channels with the Turing machine, right? So I will send them to 2 different switches, one for pitch, one for gates, right? So I have here 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the same with the gates. Right, and then I can switch between them and I have 4 different variations, but only with one voice. Can use, for example, a divided by 8 clock to switch between the sequences. Let's add also some reverb. I'm not so sure why there is no reverb in this case. Very nice. Right, so again, I recorded the Turing machine 4 different times, and now all I'm doing is just switching between the sequences. So I have 4 different variations. So instead of using 4 voices, I'm using 1 voice, but with 4 different sequences. And that's it. I hope you will go and experiment with these 2 sequencers. Thank you again so much for your support. Cheers.